Hello, the internet. Welcome to another issue of the Ghostlight Social with me, Mike, and Mr. Lee Toombs. This is the show, you know what it is. We get creative people together, we raise our hopes and we dash our fears, and we have a bit of a laugh on the way. As I've said, Lee's here. Let's bring him in.
Yeah, you cop a little bit there because I was just looking for something, Mike, that I wanted to share, and I haven't found it, so I'll share it next week. It's fine. It's a little free resource that has just been
Google.
followed by. What?
Google.
You think Google's free? Google is not free, my friend. No, it's a YouTube channel, and it was put up by one of the casting directors. I can't remember which casting director it is now, and I was just frantically searching for it on Twitter, but totally free, load of videos about, kind of self-tapes and casting tips, etc. And guess what the best thing about it is, Michael?
It's not charging you a penny.
Absolutely. There is absolutely not a £16-17 a month charge for that information, which is always nice.
Yeah, we like that.
Yeah, we do like that.
Yeah.
But I can't remember what it is. I can't remember what it is. Mike, how are you? How's your week been?
I'm all right. It's been a bit of a tiring old couple of weeks, and I'm not complaining whatsoever. But
sounds like you are.
It's just every day has been really busy. My wife's been working full time pretty much for the last 2 weeks. She's normally part time, but somebody's on holiday, so it's been dad duties every day, and then I've been working every weekend. So it's been a bit full on. Tomorrow, it's the first day in about a month where I've not had to set an alarm, so I'm looking forward to that.
What, tomorrow? Yeah. You're not setting an alarm tomorrow?
Not setting an alarm tomorrow.
What time's Piper going to get you up?
Probably about. She's not been too bad this last couple of weeks. She's been like 7 o'clock. Obviously, that's my influence.
My God, 7 o'clock. I don't miss those days, Mike. I do not miss those days.
I mean, it's like 5:45. That's when you kind of feel it, don't you?
No, yeah, it is. Yeah, 5:30. That's when you start going. Oh, you start tearing up a little bit because you're so tired.
I'm saying that, but at 5:30 this morning, she was in our bed, sat bolt upright, smacking me up face. And I say she got up at 7.
You really have to tell your wife to stop doing that.
Yeah, I know. I bet she doesn't really like me, so
Fair enough. Have you got that? Do you want to share that quick story that you've been trying to share for weeks, or should we get our guests in straight away?
Yeah, I can do. Is this yeah, I think it is. The brush with the press.
Yeah, that one. The press.
So, you might be aware that I direct and produce another show, which is a Hollyoaks themed retrospective where Kelly, who was on our show right at the very beginning, she was on episode like 4 or 5 or something. She hosts it. She was Zara Morgan in Hollyoaks, and sorry, my slipper's come off, so I'm just gonna oik that back on.
Right.
She hosts it and basically speak to former cast, current cast, about their time on Hollyoaks and about what they're doing, possibly since or.
All right. You've plugged it enough. Come on.
So, episode 2 was Gemma Atkinson and Alex Carter, who you'll know as Gemma and Lee Hunter. And wonderful show. It was really funny. It was great. They were great. Gemma told an anecdote about how she used to get into trouble for drawing phalluses, or as she called them, rockets, on random scripts.
See, actors never do that. Actors never do things like that.
And this was something which she kind of made her own when she was on Hollyoaks. This was her thing. And so, you could be whatever. You've got some sides, you're looking through it, and then page 17, there's a dobber. Bit of a throwaway kind of little 2-minute section in the thing. Episode went out about a week later, and then the Express, Entertainment Daily, I think the Mail got it, the Star got it. Loads of these newspapers were just running this story, and I ended up basically getting a message off Kelly saying, "Are you free?" And I wasn't. I was literally like kind of doing other stuff. And as I found out later, that was to invite me on a conference call with all her publicists and stuff to see what they could do about this story. And I was like, I'm really glad I didn't. I had other stuff to do because that would have just been well awkward. But they were fine. They were like, within an hour, there was another story about her for somewhat completely unrelated. So it was just like, really, they were just being nice to us. So yeah, that's my first ever national press kind of link. And it's a good job that I'm not on camera in that one because I'd have been shitting it a little bit. Not that I'm going to get papped in Bradford, but you know what I mean?
No, well, you never. Yeah, listen. These days, you never know. You never know.
True.
Okay, good. Well, I'll look out for the next brush with fame.
Yeah, Gemma Bissix, Tamara Wall this week. Tomorrow. It's a good one.
Okay. All right. Great.
It's in 2 parts.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anything else you want to plug rather than our show?
No. I was going to do some there, but I won't.
Okay. All right. Remember to like and subscribe and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Shall we get our guests in?
Absolutely.
I'm so very excited about this because we've been trying to get different creatives on, and it's very exciting when we get a different perspective of the industry and a different voices, etc., etc. And not only have we got one writer, but we've got 2 writers, and I'll take that slightly further and say award-winning, my friend, award-winning writers.
And genuinely, like the caliber of tonight's guest is up there, innit? You know what I mean?
All right, don't big him up too much.
Well, that's my job, innit? I'm the hype man in this little duo.
We're very, very lucky to welcome writers Lisa Holdsworth and Garry Lyons. Welcome.
Hi.
Yes.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. Lisa, first of all, how's lockdown? I'm imagining that actually, as a writer, it's probably not that much different.
I have to say, it's not massive. It's very weird. I've got my first job as an executive producer this year, and I should have been going up and down to Cardiff, and then with a few stop-offs in London for the last 3 months. And actually, I've done it all from this very bedroom. So well, it's not.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It would have been nice to be at the studio, but actually it's really, really nice not to spend 5 hours on a train to Cardiff, to be quite honest with you.
Can you say what that is, or is it under wraps?
Yeah, no, I am working on the final series of A Discovery of Witches for Sky. I wrote on the last series, which comes out hopefully in the next couple of months, and then we're hopefully starting filming in September for the 3rd series.
Forgive my ignorance. Well, obviously I know the answer to this question, but for those that don't, what does an executive producer do?
I'm a writing executive producer. It's oversight on everybody else's scripts. So there's myself and Helen Rayner, who some viewers might know from Doctor Who. She was a writer on that show for a while. We're the lead writers, but we make sure our other writers are supported, that there's continuity of tone across the different scripts. And we get a little bit of say in casting and things like that. It does mean we have to sit in a lot of meetings when we should be writing, and both of us, you can see us both on Skype calls like this. Got a deadline, don't want to hear about costume, move it on. So, yeah,
that's fair.
A lot of meetings.
And as far as the casting element of that's really interesting, because certainly when I teach actors and we talk about that a little bit, about how actually as an actor you have very little influence over over that part of the process. You go in and you do your thing, but there are so many other steps and so many other eyes that are looking at that. And I wonder if you could just tell me a little bit about that.
The thing I'd say to actors is, often when you get in that room, we've lived with those characters in our heads for 4, 5, 6 drafts of a script, and we have very clear ideas of what they look like, and it's quite brutal. But they often send us some photographs, and we go, not her, that's not what I had in mind. Not because you're a terrible actor or because you're ugly or anything like that, but because it's just not the vision that we had. And then the tapes come in. Very rare that I'm sitting on audition. And then it's who often text does something with the script that if you weren't expecting, you think, wow, that's a new aspect to that character. I didn't see it like that, because again, you've lived with it in your head, you've read that dialogue out to yourself a million times, or it's someone who absolutely nails it and you go, that's it, that's this character, that's Fred Bloggs, Frida Bloggs. I have lots of friends who are actors, and I always say you just don't know what's gone on before you've walked into that room or you've done your self-tape, because we could be looking for something so specific that you'd never fill the criteria.
Would I be right in saying that, certainly as far as TV is concerned, that a casting director will throw in a curve? So there'll be something. So there'll be 3 or 4 people that are potentially sort of what you're looking for, and then there'll be one which is just somewhere else, left field, or something slightly different.
Sometimes, yeah, and particularly, thankfully, in this day and age, you will get, in terms of look, a very wide range of people. So there's a different races, different sizes and shapes, and all the rest of it, and that's absolutely quite right. So and often, yes, something will come across your desk where you go, oh, I've not thought about it in that way before. Let's get them in. Let's have a look. Let's have a see. Yeah. But yeah, so we're really lucky. We have an enormously talented casting directors in this country, and you know, they genuinely care about both sides of the process. You guys on the audition side, and us on being very demanding and saying what we want and giving terrible notes in scripts, going, how do we cast from that? So that's a skill I've learned over the years to get what I want by making sure it's in the script. So yeah, so sometimes you'll see something that completely blows you away, and it is all about, oh God, I hate to say the word, it is X Factor, someone who comes in not overly confident, but confident, who you think, wow, that's, you know, they've made the funny funnier, the dramatic more dramatic, or that I've cried in auditions, I've gone, wow, you've actually made me cry at my own script, and that's really salved my ego. So yeah, you get it.
That's really interesting. You say about getting into the script, sort of what you want, because as an actor, I think sometimes you look at the script and you think, oh God, they've overwritten that. From the point of view
that's
of
that's the note you give me, like on every single scene I ever send you. You've overwritten that, and I'm like,
well, yeah, and that's funny because you're looking at it from a writer's point of view, and I'm looking from an actor's point of view, and obviously as an actor, what I want to bring is my take to it, and the more prescribed it is, the more I feel sort of penned in. But I understand there's a balance between the two. That's fine.
I think it's also worth saying, yeah, with the greatest respect to your profession, it's not always about you. And that document is often, it's stuff for the director, it's stuff for the locations manager, all the rest of it. That document has to do so much work. So yeah, that note said, look, there's a bit too much in it.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And actually, just to quantify that, I often say to the students exactly that. You've got to remember that it's about the camera movement. It's about all sorts of other things. It's not just about the character. Did I get out with that one, Mike?
Barely.
Right, that was from just asking you how lockdown was. What a fantastic answer we went off on there. That was brilliant. Thank you, Gary. How are things? How's lockdown been?
Yeah, well, it's been strange. I'm not in Leeds, where I normally live. I took advantage of the fact my wife has a property in Hexham in Northumberland, so I'm speaking to you from there right now. I've made a couple of lightning visits to Leeds for various appointments, but actually for the most part of the last 4 or 5 months, I've been in the Northumberland Hills, and which. Great, but still doing my day job, which is teaching at Leeds University.
Okay.
So that's been strange as well. So I've been running all my tutorials and seminars from this office in Hexham, 100 miles away.
Well, yeah, because I was going to ask you about that, because I had read somewhere that you were leaving, or you had left, or you were moving on, so I wasn't sure whether you were still there or not. So
no, I leave in 2 months' time, which was a decision I'd made before the pandemic, and I'm just thinking now, thank God, what great timing. That's the best bit of timing I've ever done, any better than any script I've written. because frankly, my colleagues at the university are going through hell trying to plan for the new academic year at the end of September, without really knowing where they're going to be teaching, how they're going to be teaching, or indeed how many students are actually going to turn up.
So am I right in saying that the creative writing and the writing section of the university is going into the new, or supposed to be going into the new building by the Playhouse?
No, that's a quite separate institution.
Okay. Oh, it's
yeah,
a different institution altogether.
That's what used to be Park Lane College. I can't remember what it's called now. No, that's something quite separate.
But yeah. We had Marie Critchley on, who's an actress, and also she teaches acting at the Arden. I've forgotten the name of the drama school that I went to there. She was saying a similar thing about how it's just not necessarily being able to get people back in, and how that's going to work, and it must be tricky trying to plan that stuff.
Yeah, no, so much will not be literally until the first day of term, and that's every higher education institution in the country. The potential for chaos is enormous. And the government seems singularly uninterested, really, in giving any help to the higher education sector any more than they show any sign of giving help to the arts. And since they're the two parts of my world, it's a very odd prospect.
I thought the guidance on starting up theatre was very clear. I think it was very concise. There was a particularly excellent part about rehearsing and saying that the scripts ideally should be projected onto the wall so that there is no sharing of scripts.
Yeah, we like that. And actors learning their lines before they attend rehearsal. We like that one too.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. With no thought of you might have your own script.
Yeah, well, at least they won't be cutting any lines.
I was thinking it might help me a lot, actually, if lines were projected. Right. Yeah, fantastic. Okay, now I cannot remember, so I apologise. Did I send you a list of questions?
You sent me a list of questions.
Not me, I don't think.
Lisa's shaking her head.
Oh, so I'm so sorry.
It's all right, I can wing it.
Excellent.
You would. They're not very hard.
No, they're not hard. So if I sent you a list of questions, Garry, I'll start with you if that's all right, and that gives Lisa a bit of thinking time. Do you have a song for our isolation playlist?
Yes, you mentioned this. I've chosen Solid Air by John Martin, partly because I thought Solid Air is a very good title for the current circumstances, and it's a song about isolation. But it just so happened, I've always been a fan of John Martin, and I had some vague memories that he had something to do with the town in which I grew up, which was Kingston-on-Thames in southwest London. And I started reading up on him, and lo and behold, it turns out that he was born half a mile from where I used to live as a kid. And although he grew up in Glasgow, his parents were separated. His mother continued to live in and around Kingston and Surbiton, and he often used to visit. So I wasn't wrong in remembering that he'd actually started his career at a folk club down on the River Thames in Kingston, which we used to frequent as school kids. And his biography has just come out, a new biography by Graham Thompson. So I've been devouring that. My wife gave it to me for my birthday last week. So I thought, put all those things together and
very nice.
Yeah,
very
back
nice.
to your list.
And happy birthday for
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Yes, and I suppose if you move to Kingston upon Thames, you probably don't move away because it's a beautiful part of the world. Part of London as well.
Well, for a northerner to say that's extraordinary, I think. Yes.
Well, I mean, it's right on the river. There's some beautiful walks down there. I spent about 6 or 7 weeks down there at the Rose Theatre, and I had a great time down there.
Well, obviously, I'm an exile. I left that part of the world when I came to university at York as a student, and I've never walked Yorkshire since. So I still don't have my passport, naturally.
Yeah, I mean, I said it was nice. I didn't say it was not. There's no comparison. But it's a nice part of the world. And I would imagine it costs a few quid to live in Kingston, I would think.
These days, yeah, blimey. My mum still lives in the house I grew up in. That's worth quite a lot of money these days, even though it's just a fairly ordinary little terraced house.
I bet. Yeah, nice place. Lisa, have you had a think? What have you got for us?
I would say Mr. Brightside by The Killers, because I do think that lockdown, you're either shining faced and positive and fighting through it, or as my friend is, we're all going to die, still opening door handles by pulling your jumper over your hand and all of that kind of thing. I must admit, I veer towards the optimistic. I try to, but Mr. Brightside, I love that song anyway.
Great song. I'm surprised we haven't had that yet as well.
Yeah, I'm going to say, I mean, it shocked me actually, episode 29 so far of this. And nobody
well done.
it.
Yeah. Episode 29. That's good, isn't it? Oh. Who'd have thought that?
Not me.
Mr. Brightside. Yes, very good indeed.
Love that. It's good. Good couple of choices, those.
Okay, yeah, they're both on. Brilliant. Thank you very much. So back to you, Gary, because you know the questions. What is the most coronavirus thing you've done? So what have you done during lockdown that you probably wouldn't have done?
Family quizzes and kippers. So family quizzes. Our family is no, not at the same time. We instituted weekly family quizzes as a way of all getting together. Which, in the end, we see more of each other than we do normally because we're all spread out. There's Scotland, London, Manchester, Croatia, Nottingham, Yorkshire. We're here up in Northumberland at the moment. So it's been great, actually, having all these quizzes. And then, of course, naturally what happens is you realise how much you hate the rest of your family in time. So you know, it's the same. It's all a cycle, isn't it, really? No, it's been fun. It's been fun, all that. And kippers, I love kippers, but I never cook kippers at home normally. But now there's time. I find I'm doing all sorts of cooking, and that's one of the delicacies on the menu.
Smoke me a kipper, I'll be home for breakfast.
Yeah.
Why kippers?
I just like them. I like them, but normally they'd stink the place out, don't they? You cook them, so you wouldn't think of doing them normally. But you know, now you've got time to open up all the windows and everything and let all the COVID in. You know, it's great.
What are we talking? Are we talking fried? Shallow fried, grilled? What is it?
Well, it could, grilled normally, I would say. Yeah, grilled, sometimes in the microwave if I want to do it quickly.
Controversial.
Yeah. But it says so on the packet, so I feel.
Squeeze of lemon, a little bit of.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That sounds nice. Yeah, but it's good because it can be for any meal. You know, you can have it for breakfast, you can have it for lunch, and you can have it for dinner.
Your house will stink.
Not every day, 3 meals. Just
I was just wondering whether I had this picture of some sort of strange little guy in a local pub somewhere in Northumberland going, "Do you want any kippers? Do you want some kippers?" And suddenly you buy all these kippers and they're in the freezer.
Yeah, but on the market in Hexham we can get our Arbroath Smokies as well.
Nice.
Yeah. So the smoked fish is a big hit.
Nice, very nice. Big fan of fish. I don't eat enough fish, but I
had a bit of fish today.
What did you have? Fish and chips twice.
I had some fish and vegetable star shapes that were left over from my daughter's lunch. Isn't that nice?
Yeah. Yeah, with a little bit of lemon.
Yeah, little bit of lemon, little bit of garlic mayonnaise.
Right,
great.
A few beans.
Spaghetti hoops.
Fair enough. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Why not? Okay, great. Kippers, love that. The Zoom thing. I think that lasted. We ended up having 3 as a family before we realised we hated each other's guts. It just wasn't necessary.
We hadn't done any. None whatsoever. My family have not reached out to me, apart from my mum when it was like her birthday and stuff. Nobody said, "Do you want a Zoom quiz?" Because they know I'll just tell them to.
I was going to say, I'm not being funny, Mike. They have done it. They just didn't invite.
Which is fine. That's fine.
Okay. Most coronavirus thing, Lisa?
So really early on, my mum is very gregarious and she struggled with the lockdown, and to the point where I think I stood on the garden path with tears in my eyes going, if you end up on a ventilator in a conference centre in Harrogate, I'll never forgive myself trying to get them stopping the house. They've got it now, though. So I set up on Facebook a virtual village fete. And got loads of people to put, what are you baking, what you make, because Mum's really crafty and hands-on, and I knew that if I could get a bit of competition going between her and her sisters on Facebook. So we ended up with, it's still up there, the virtual village fair, if anybody wants to find it, and there's pictures of people from South Africa were putting in pictures of cakes and stuff, and craft and stuff like that. So, and that sort of kept us going for at least the first month, I would say, while everybody when everybody went mad for baking, I took up embroidery, so I've got about 4 embroideries that are going up on the wall at this. I'm decorating a room. I don't decorate. I usually get a man in. And so that's what I'm doing this weekend. I've learned how to use my drill. So I've put shelves up. So, so DIY and crafting and all that kind of thing in the village fair.
Excellent.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, I've done nothing. Like, nothing. I've done this. I've done a bit of gardening, put a fence up. But,
is it still up?
Yeah, the fence is still up. Thank you very much.
Just checking. It's been windy.
Brilliant. So a complete village fair on Facebook. That's impressive.
It was really good fun. We got a couple of Emmerdale actors to do a bit of judging on it. So that all the with the greatest respect to my mum, she's nearly 80, so that was very exciting for her. So no, it was good fun. It was really good fun.
What great answers! The best 2 answers we've ever had. Yeah. It's usually, I've done a bit of drinking. I made some banana bread.
Yeah. I'm going to say one of the most popular ones is, I've had it.
I've had it.
I've had it.
Yeah, I'm sure I've had it.
Yeah, I had it in February. I had a cough, and it's like, all right, yeah, of course you did.
But have you noticed that the I've had it conversations are getting earlier and earlier? So I had a conversation with somebody the other day who was going, November. Honestly, I was so ill. In November. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't breathe. I went out walking the dog and I had to sit down for 2 months. Honestly, I've had it. I had it in November. You haven't. Well, you might have done. Who knows? I don't know, do I? Okay. Now I'm going to rearrange these questions slightly. So coming back to you, Gary. What I'm trying to think how to phrase this. What was the last thing you wrote that was viewed by an audience?
The Last Scene, which was my play that you were part of research and developing for me with some terrific actors in Doncaster, and finally made it to full professional production at Cast in Doncaster in the autumn of 2018.
Can you remember the last line?
I should do, shouldn't I? Are you talking about the end of the first act or the second act?
I don't mind.
Something about being a community.
Because the last, just tell us a little bit about the last scene, because it was taken sort of. I'm not sure it ended up completely verbatim, but it certainly was at first when we were developing it, from stories from a mining community.
So it came out of research I did around Hatfield Main Colliery, which was shut in 2015, I think. One of the last 3 mines in the UK to close, coal mines to close. It's about 10 miles northeast of Doncaster, part of the Doncaster coalfield. and I live not too far away, and I thought, well, that ought to be marked somehow in some kind of theatrical way. So I approached Cully Tiaro, who was at that time running Cast in Doncaster, and said, on that, and she said no, and she encouraged me to get started on what was quite an extensive piece of research. I went down intensively for several months, interviewing miners, their families, and other members of the community, just to capture a sense of how they felt about their community. Really. It wasn't my intention to write about the miners' strike, because I kind of thought that had been done, but the way they told the story was always in relation to the miners' strike and what had happened since. So the miners' strike features very heavily in the first act of the play, as you know. But the second act of the play, which is really the kind of stuff that I'm most proud of, I suppose, is about what's going on now and what's happened in recent years in an example of one of those neglected communities that, now suddenly are all in the news, but weren't at the time, and hadn't been for years and years and years. And what was a kind of a stroke of luck, really, if you want to call it that, was I got the money from the Arts Council to do the R&D almost exactly at the time of the Brexit referendum. So there was a real kind of contemporary kind of energy to the piece because of that. It ended up as being pretty much all verbatim, but as you know, verbatim is all in the editing, really. It came together as a piece of work that I'm really, really proud of, actually. And as you know, through taking part in the research and development, the community are proud of it as well. Really took it to their hearts, and I'd love to see it done again. We had a week at Cast. We took it on tour for a month. It did really well, packed out in Northern Stage, and also played really well at various community venues all around Yorkshire. And I'd love to see it done again, but just at the moment it's probably not going to be possible.
Not for a while, unfortunately. I wouldn't have thought so. Imagine that community tours may well start before main houses open. I could be wrong about that, but
it'll be a lovely radio piece as well, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. And when we did that open reading to the community in the community centre there, that will always stick in my mind, because in relation to the referendum and Brexit and everything else, and just remembering. That I can't remember which gentleman it was. I can't remember which character it was from the play itself. But the gentleman who was talking about the chicken factory, and this idea that the reason that he'd voted, or a lot of them had voted to leave Europe, was because they wanted their chicken factory back. They wanted, and it was, I was gobsmacked, but I felt really sorry for them, really sorry that the kind of, it just reminded me, without getting massively political, just reminded me how much both parties, to a degree, but certainly Leave, just lied to everybody or misled everyone that you were going to get all this industry back, and you were never, you just wanted to say to him, you're not getting your chicken factory, it's not coming back, you're not going to get that.
Yeah, I remember Ed Miliband coming to see the reading at Cast, which you were also part of, weren't you? And what really struck him was how those views were rarely seen on stage or even on telly, which at the time was true. Perhaps not quite so true now, but at that time, 2 or 3 years ago, those kinds of experiences and those kinds of opinions never really got a fair airing. Yeah. So how could people possibly understand how people in those communities felt or feel?
Yeah. No, absolutely. Abandoned in the 80s, when the industry was destroyed, and then abandoned since, by successive governments of all colours. Yeah. No, it's a fascinating piece, and it was wonderful to be. Especially, I mean, it was nice to talk to Ed Millen about it, but certainly in the social club there, it was a wonderful experience. Yeah, fab. Lisa.
Not including repeats of old Midsummer episodes, which
them old repeats that keep.
I think I'm trying to think which ran longest. So probably Black Teeth and a Brilliant Smile, the play I wrote about Andrea Dunbar last year, and that was supposed to go on tour again this year. Frustratingly, I'm just going to have a second life because it's probably the thing I'm most proud of writing, and that was. It was just incredible, and the last performance was at the Holbeck Slunglaws place, and it was a hell of a day. Exhausting but brilliant. So yeah, it's weird, when your Facebook starts throwing up, oh, you were doing this a year ago, and it's like, oh, not now, come on, you're gonna have me in tears again. Yeah. So yeah, that was the last thing in front of an audience. God, that feels like a very long time ago.
Yeah. Having said that, I imagine that if there's one place that is going to open up before any other for performances, it will be Alan at Slunglow.
Yeah. I think that watching their enormous commitment to their community play out on social media, there's a little bit of me that's completely worried about them because they must be exhausted, all of them. But God, what an example to us all. That's what the arts can really do. They're extraordinary, and my hat goes off to them on a daily basis. Yeah, me too. It has been extraordinary, like you say, watching it unfold on social media and keeping abreast of it. And also, we mentioned it, was it last week or week before? I can't remember, Mike. When we were talking to Elvie from Ensemble about the play that they've been doing on the back of the lorry. And the first performance of it that they did in the car park with the little pods and that drone shot from above, and you just think, wow. Yeah. And then the blog that Alan wrote about, we didn't hide anything, but we didn't ask for permission. We just told them we were doing it, and they just did it. And you just go, wow. Wow. It was the irony of, I think it was 2 days later that those guidelines came out from DCMS. And I read those 47 words, I think, that he spared us, going, we're already doing that up here, you bloody idiots. So it was just insult to injury. Fabulous. So while we're talking about the industry now, so while we're on that, Garry, a favourite moment?
Well, I mean, I guess I would go back to the last scene again, but if you want to pick something else out, I suppose it would be walking across Waterloo Bridge, seeing my name up in lights on top of the National Theatre. That's a hard one to beat.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah. That'll do.
Tell us a bit more about that.
That was a play I wrote called Wicked Yar, which was a kind of a teen Bangor Muffin musical. I ran Bradford Theatre in the Mill during the 80s, so I'd spent a long time working in Bradford and working with the Asian community there. And out of the blue, the National Theatre came to me after I'd finished that job and asked me if I wanted to write a play for teenagers for them, and that's what kind of came out of it. It's not a project I would even imagine doing now. I mean, the idea of a white guy writing a piece that was substantially Asian in its tone and subject matter, you'd have to think very hard about it. Now, at the time, I was wonderfully naive. I did my research, and I knew the patch. I knew what I was talking about. I mean, it completely blew the National Theatre away in one sense, because there was this kind of complete writer with this play with a title that nobody understood, which just caused a sort of storm at the box office. They couldn't understand it. Who were all these people ringing out? The idea of a National Theatre doing a play that was aimed at Asian teenagers. I mean, it was obviously aimed at all teenagers, but a kind of a play about multicultural Britain set in a fictitious northern city using Bangramuffin rap music with a title which signalled that. They had no idea actually what they had on their hands, and it did terribly good business. It toured, played the Cottesloe. And of course, I've never been invited back to the National since.
Imagine the National Theatre doing something that was for a national audience. Imagine that. Yeah, extraordinary. And I think it's great that you've never been invited back. I think that is great. Oh, love it. Okay, Lisa, favourite moment?
So, as you know, one of my other hats is being producer on Slung Low Shorts, and it was the second year in, and we had an actor in one of the plays who had not done. He was quite young, had not done a lot of acting. His dad came up from rehearsals every day, and this is when we were still in the Hub. Slung Low hadn't moved to the Holbeck at that point, and I think his dad was actually checking that we weren't, getting him into a cull or we weren't doing it or something that.
Which you were, to be fair.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no getting away from it. And so he was quite suspicious the first couple of times, and then his dad came to the opening night. Just shorts for anybody who doesn't know, 6 short plays in a night. We tend to find writers who've written for television but haven't written a lot for theatre. And he came out, that were great. That were great. And then suddenly our ticket bookings went up for the Saturday matinee. We sold out really quickly, and it turned out he'd apparently gone home, walked into his local pub and went, right, you lot, you're all coming to see our kid in this play on Saturday. Well, this audience turned up. God bless them. Now, funnily enough, now they're at the Holbeck. I think it's quite a regular audience for anything that's done at Slung Low. But this audience turned up who were not the usual hipster cool audience for us on this Saturday matinee. They loved that the bar was £1 for everything at the time at the Hub, and they packed it out, and it was really strange. They kept coming out between the players to get more and more booze, and they got quite tanked up. We got someone who we had to call an ambulance because he'd had a panic attack. It had all been a bit too much for this young lad, which was extra. It was Alan was on the bar that night, Alan Lane. It was one of the most extraordinary nights we'd ever had. And at the end, I was a bit nervous when people coming out. God, I hope they liked it. I hope they don't all coming out, well, that were a load of rubbish, because it's a page feel as well. And we're going to end up with an empty jar. And this woman came over to me and threw her arms around me and went, that is one of the best nights out I've ever had. Then this bloke, proper skinhead, came up to me and went, it's better than a lot of the crap that's on the telly at the moment. That. And that was the best theatre experience I've ever had. Nothing. I drove home. I can still see it in my head as I drove from Holbeck back to Farsley with all the windows open, radio on full whack, singing along, because I've never been happier. It were a brilliant night that night.
Brilliant. And obviously, Slung Low Shorts, is it now 5 years?
It would have been 5 years this next week. We would have been on. So obviously, for obvious reasons, we took a decision quite late on. I co-produced it with Matt Catley and Joe Adamson-Parker, and because both Mark and Joe were homeschooling, the realities of trying to get it together. I'm working on Discovery, and we might have been able to do something for radio or something like that, but we didn't want to half-arse it, especially with it being our 5th year. So we will be back, all being well, next year. The same writers will ask them back. And they, at the start of lockdown, were like, we can do this. And now they're saying, actually, what I might write might be something very different for next year. So obviously, I mean, we've sort of said, oh God, please don't give us a load of coronavirus monologues. No one wants to.
We love a coronavirus monologue.
That first week of lockdowns. What do you mean in lockdown a week and you're already crying into your web camera?
Don't get me started. I was saying to somebody today that it's just like the thing is, I nearly fell into the trap as well. I nearly fell in because of the pressure. It was so like you saw people and you're going, oh my God, they're all doing. I need to do something, and I thought, fuck, I can't be bothered. No. Just can't be bothered.
Just don't do it.
Fair enough. While so talking about slung low shorts, and well, it's not about slung low shorts at all. It just popped into my head. So the RTS Yorkshire, which am I right in saying you're chair of?
I'm the vice chair of it. I used to be the chair of the awards. So yeah, last week should have been the television awards, and that celebrates television production in the region. And you very kindly done some judging in the past for us on that. So we are going to try and do something late September. I think it's really important to have something that celebrates what goes on in the regions at the moment, because I think a lot of things are very London-centric. But the reality is that obviously we have a big sit-down dinner at the Queen's Hotel. That wasn't going to be happening in July. We were talking about it the other day and going, I don't think anybody's going to want buffets for the next couple of years, so we won't do food at them, whatever we do. But hopefully we'll try and do something. It might have to be online. We all experience this. That your diary just going absolutely empty instantly. So yeah, Slung Low Shorts, RTS Awards. To be honest with you, it would have been over the last few weeks. I don't know where I found the time to do all of that, because I don't feel any less busy. But I usually don't sleep much in June and July, and I've had a better level of sleep this summer.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit like that thing that was doing the rounds on social media, wasn't it? There was a guy sat down by his back door. Did you see it? And his wife was saying, "You've got to go to work tomorrow," and he was sort of shaking, going, "No, I'm not going to work. But we need some money." "No, we don't need money. I'm staying in a plane, not going." It sort of feels a bit like that, you know. Yeah. Somebody rang me and said, "Could you do a couple of days' work next week?" I mean, only from home, but even then, I was thinking,
why?
Do I need to? Yeah, I do.
Because I had a job, because I was on Discovery of Witches. That first few weeks, everybody was like, "Oh, I'm having pina coladas in the back garden at 3:00 in the afternoon." It's like, I am still on a deadline. How dare you?
Yeah, well, that's your own fault for being so popular and talented. Great. Okay, so we're still talking about the industry, so I'll come back to you, Garry. Future of the industry, sort of hopes and fears?
Well, I hope there's going to be a kind of a rethink, really. I mean, my worry is that the available money will be targeted towards big organisations again. But actually, what ought to happen is that there's a kind of refiguration of the relationship between organisations, artists, and audiences. And I would hope that that there'll be more opportunity for artists to engage in a meaningful way with local audiences, and I mean local, kind of in a serious kind of enhancement of the regional artistic offer. And that work emerges out of a really meaningful dialogue between artists and audiences, in which the organisations act as hosts, but aren't driving the whole industry in the way that I think perhaps they have. And we still need the organisations, but I think the dominance of the large organisations, perhaps at the expense of that dialogue between artists and audiences, has been a bit of a problem. Certainly will become a problem even more so as we go forward.
Yeah, there's an interesting just funding and things that is supposedly in place. There's that interesting phrase that keeps popping up, which is protecting the crown jewels. And I think we all know what they believe the crown jewels to be, but you're right, that whole thing needs to be reframed, because I don't think the crown jewels are some of them are the crown jewels that they were.
Well, I was told an interesting piece of information today, which I don't think is public knowledge, but I believe that this big kind of 1.57 billion or whatever it is that the DCMS have come up with to direct towards the arts as a kind of a recovery package. I'm told that no one single organisation will be able to bid for more than 3 million. That's 3 million is an awful lot of money, but actually it is an awful lot of money to organisations like Covent Garden, the Victoria and Albert Museum, the National Theatre, RSC. So if that signals the fact that the intention, and I don't want to give the government credit for anything, by the way, but if that signals an intention to spread money more widely, then that would be a good thing.
That would certainly be a good thing if that's the way, because I exactly as you were saying before, when I read through that, and I haven't read through it in any great detail, but you're just thinking, we know where this money's going. We know where it's going to go. It's going to go to the big buildings, and I know that everybody, and I've said this a couple of times, I know that everybody's going to struggle, but I don't worry about the National Theatre. I know they're making noises saying that this, that, and the other, and I worry about the front of house staff. I worry about the people that they employ, but the National Theatre itself, I'm sure, will be fine. On some level. Whereas the theatre that I do panto at, who rely on their pantomime to get them through the year, they're not going to be fine. I mean, they'll come out of it because you have to think differently, but it will be a hell of a struggle, and those are the things. Organisations that I worry about.
But I think this government have got a political problem with all of this, haven't they? Which is to do with protecting the so-called blue wall. They won the last election by winning votes from people they don't normally win votes from. And they've got to find ways of directing money towards those communities and constituencies. Some for their own kind of self-protection, if you like. Now, that may not be a good reason for money directed towards those communities, but if that's the result, then I think there may well be opportunities that haven't existed before.
And just before I move over to Lisa, from a writer's point of view, I mean, how do you think things have changed, or things have moved, or what's your hope and fears from that perspective?
I mean, writers write, and if they're smart and they're nimble, they will find new ways of working. I used to think that theatre writers needed theatres to get their work on in. I'm less certain of that now. I think there have been all sorts of changes in the last few years which show there's a kind of resourcefulness, an ability to kind of rethink what theatre is from a writing point of view, or from a general kind of theatre maker's point of view, which actually is very exciting. But it does mean that, going back to what I was saying earlier, a kind of a meaningful dialogue between writers and artists and the communities they're serving. And I don't mean by that we should kind of descend into a kind of sentimental kind of just giving people what they want in a kind of simplistic way. But I think there's all sorts of experiences that have never really been explored by theatre as it exists, which give all sorts of opportunities to create new work.
Excellent, yeah. Thank you, Lisa.
I oscillate between absolute dread, fear, and the night announcement of the 1.5 billion was awful. I didn't sleep very well. It felt like things were coming to a head. I think Gary's right. I think theatre as a building, we might not be able to go back to certain buildings for a very long time, particularly the sort of Victorian West End theatres. They're just not going to be viable if you've got to have rows empty and big gaps between us. However, the smaller companies, and we're really blessed up in Leeds that we've got an amazing fringe scene, have proved to be much more fleet of foot, much more inventive, And so the idea that maybe some of that money will go to them on the understanding that they, as you say, they serve their local communities and have that dialogue. I think that's exciting. I wish it hadn't come around because of a pandemic, but the fact that we're having this conversation now is really exciting for me. I mean, in terms of the reality for the government, I'm the chair of the Writers Guild, and along with Equity and Beck2 and all the other entertainment unions, we have been hammering DCMS and the Treasury with information, the reality of what the creative industries as a whole mean to this country. It is one of the few growth industries. It's bigger than fisheries and agriculture put together. We bring so much money into the country that we didn't have to make the financial argument for it. So that I think this money is important, but I think we have a case for more to support that industry. Television's getting going again, which is great, but that again, until we can have some travel that will bring less money in, we have to be realistic about this. But yeah, I think I'm going to be Mr. Brightside about it. I think good things will happen. I think we'll lose some real big hitters, and my biggest concern is diversity and equality in the industry. It's already a leaky pipeline financially. If you cannot, pay your rent, you haven't got parents who will put you up and all the rest of it, you will drop out of the industry. And I think we've got to work hard to make sure that doesn't happen on a catastrophic level over the next year or so. But I think that's on all of us. We all have to look to that and make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I agree with both 100%. We did have a guest on a few weeks ago, which I sort of agree with, that I wouldn't mind a few people in my casting bracket just dropping out a bit. They could drop out just a little bit.
Garry, there's a couple of writers who would like
Absolutely, but it's funny actually, because you mentioned the West End and the bigger commercials over the last couple of years. Being a jobbing actor, one of the good things about that is I get to see lots of different parts of the industry, from big TV film sets to small sets to lots of subsidised theatre, and also over the last few years I've done quite a lot of commercial theatre, and the difference between the way that commercial theatre is set up and subsidised theatre is massive, and I do worry about. Well, I'm saying worry. For the people that work in commercial theatre, I do worry about that. And often when we talk about theatre on a national level, especially in the media, it's focused on that. We're talking about the West End. We're talking about the big commercial theatres that need lots of people in the building. And where's the money coming from? Whereas I think it would be nice to have a conversation that was more around. This part of the theatre has been struggling for a few years anyway, but historically there are quite a few people who have made quite a lot of money out of that. Yeah. And where are these people right now? And when I say a lot of money, I mean millions and millions. Where are they? Because I think it's their responsibility to be coming back, and saying, okay, we need to support this. And maybe that's going on behind the scenes. I don't know. Yeah. I think,
and I'd say from a writer's point of view, basically, the restrictions that may be on performance, all the rest of it, to me that sounds like a brief. We can write our way out of this. If you want something that only has 2 actors and they only have a whisper and nobody touches anything, I'll write that for you. Just give us that brief. So in terms of writing, again, don't go to the usual suspects who want to cast the thousands and want to put on Hamilton. I love Hamilton, but it's not the time for that. Come to new voices. Come to people who can give you something really unusual, and that could save theatre. I think if we don't just dish up the usual stuff. I worry that the big institutions' instinct will be to go from the canon, the dead white men. Let's put what's on the GCSE reading list this year. Let's put that on. Don't do that. Do something much more engaging, because that's how we'll get through it.
Or an age-blind version of Hamlet.
Oh, blimey! Yeah. Do we know? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh dear. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Time is cracking on. I'm aware of that. I really appreciate your time. So a couple of final questions for you, if that's all right. Oh no, just a quick one, Lisa. Just popped into my head. Just from a writing perspective, and because you're working on some TV at the moment, has some of that filming been done during lockdown, or was it all completed?
It's all going to be after lockdown. So we are writing our scripts and we're getting notes through. So we are going to have a testing station at the studio. We're lucky because it's Badwolf. They've got massive sound stages. Everybody will be tested every 48 hours, and it takes 90 minutes to get the result. So we'll be very careful because also our show has a lot of snogging in it. So we were not able to do a socially distant version. Okay. It's basically about a vampire and a witch who have sex a lot. So
sounds great.
It's pretty difficult to write away of that. But what has changed is we will not be going to France. We will not be going to Italy. We'll not be doing the international shoots. That will be the big change in television. I'm already on development work. That's what's filtering through. Is can you set it in Cardiff? Yeah, or Northumberland or wherever. So I would say to anybody who's watching, who's a writer, don't pitch something that has to film in 15 countries because it's just not going to happen for the next year or so.
No. It's like that. Robert Rodriguez, the guy who did El Mariachi and all that kind of stuff. What I think one of the biggest things I took from his book is write what you have. So he had a bus and a turtle and a guitar case, and he wrote El Mariachi.
Exactly, and for a spec script, I'd say write whatever do. Write your international space station drama, but the reality of the job, and Gary knows this, as a TV writer, you cut your cloth to suit what you've got. So if they come and go, we can't afford the horses, can you have I've literally had this note. We can't afford the horses, can you turn them all into dogs? You turn them into
Can you turn them into dogs?
Yes.
That's brilliant.
Well, there you go, yeah.
Horses are expensive.
Yeah, and dogs are not expensive, presumably.
10 a penny.
Okay, fair enough. Great. Yeah, so that's really interesting because I wondered whether any of the scripts have had to be changed because of. But if there's loads of sex and then it just makes no difference.
It will depend. We've got a couple of actors who maybe need a bit of shielding, so gradually the notes will come through. And what has changed is all the scripts will be written before we start filming, which is highly unusual, very unusual. So we are flat out at the moment, the entire writing team, trying to get everything in before the first shot.
Wow, fascinating. Okay, so final two questions, then I'll let you for coming on. I'll come to you, Gary, first. Can you tell me, during lockdown, how many toilet rolls did you have at the peak?
Probably about a dozen.
Okay, all right. I thought that was going somewhere else then. Yeah.
No. They were hard to get hold of, first of all, weren't they? Really, yeah. But because I don't have a big family or anything, there wasn't the problem that I think some people were facing. I know that at one point there were going to be toilet roll riots in London, weren't there? But that never materialised.
I think 12 is reasonable. Yeah. Flour? Did you manage on the flour that you had? Or?
No, I bought some flour. I haven't been doing any bread, but yeah, my wife's been making cakes and bread and stuff. Yeah, but again, flour was difficult at the beginning, wasn't it? Yeah. But if you went for spelt and stuff like that, you were probably all right.
You were too busy cooking kippers, so it's fun. Yeah, absolutely. Lisa, toilet roll wise, what are we talking?
I felt enormously smug because a year ago I signed up for one of those. We'll send your toilet. It's all recycled in good packaging, and they build a toilet in the developing world every time I get
a crap or whatever.
Who gives a crap?
Yeah. I was about 30 rolls ahead of everybody, which is quite good. Nice. And then I found a bag. Chickpea flour. I have no idea why I bought it. It'd been in the back of the cupboard, and found the best chocolate brownie recipe. I'm not a vegan, but it's a vegan chocolate brownie recipe. you Google chickpea flour brownies on Pinterest, you will find that recipe, and they were amazing. You make it with the juice out of a tin of chickpeas.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god, that's horrible.
It's got it's got its own name and everything is the juice out of it. I don't know what it's called, but
aquafaba, and
yes.
you beat it, fluffs up like eggs.
It's what vegans use in replacement of egg whites.
Oh, well, there you go.
Experimental in the early stages, but now I can get a Morrison's delivery, so it's fine.
So you made them once. You're saying that the best thing ever, but you're not going to do it again.
No, I mean, oh god, I go back to the usual. I can buy it now, isn't it? Brexit's open.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so very last question then, and stick with you on this one, Lisa. What has been your vice?
Oh, wasabi peanuts. Because all the
peanuts.
Yeah, with the little sort of coating on. I got the first couple of months I ate like it was a Christmas holiday. So a little drinky on a night, bit of cheese. I don't usually have cheese in the house, so yeah, that's got to stop.
So I've never had. Well, I don't really like peanuts, but I'd never even heard of wasabi peanuts. Wasabi peas, yeah. But
if you eat just one too many, it clears your sinuses so much you can smell Kyoto, basically.
Which perhaps is not something you want to do with coronavirus about. You need to, yeah. Okay, fair enough. Gary, your vice?
Yeah, 6 packs of Häagen-Dazs ice cream. So you get these little pots. And they're there's a chocolate range and a fruit range and a vanilla range, maybe a caramel range. So you get 6 different flavoured pots in a box. It's just a nice little...
You were saying those flavours as if you didn't know what they were. You know damn well what flavours are in those pots. And no messing about with any... Yeah, no messing about with any cheap ice cream. Straight for the Häagen-Dazs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I've had more expensive than that on occasion as well. But, that's been the regular.
Oh, the life of a writer. The life of a writer.
Yeah.
We've got Asda's own vanilla or something in a big tub downstairs.
We don't get out much, so we have our little treats.
Listen, both of you, thank you. I could talk to you all evening, but I know you've got families and Zoom quizzes to get back to.
Yeah. And deadlines.
Deadlines. Thank you so. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I hope to see you both again very soon. I did mean to ask you as well very quickly, Lisa, about because you do there is a writing thing that you do as well, isn't there? Which is that through Slung Low or?
I've done it through Freedom in the past. I did the introduction to playwriting. It's another writer's run it this year, but I'm hoping that I can go back and do that next year because I really enjoyed it last year, so it was good fun.
Yeah, because that's a free course for people to sign up to, isn't it? Through Freedom. And
it was really lovely. I had a lovely time doing it. I working with other writers, so it was a pleasure to do that last year.
Fab, excellent, and a shout out to Freedom Studios who do some wonderful work as well. Excellent. Again, thank you both for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you. Hope to see you again soon. Hopefully, in a professional sense. That would be lovely. And take care. Thanks very much indeed.
See you later, guys.
Cheers, Lee.
See you later.
Bye. Bye now.
We'll wrap the show up and hopefully see you again soon.
Great stuff.
Okay.
Nice to see you both.
Thanks, guys.
See you
later.
Thanks, Lisa.
Bye.
Thanks, Gary. Bye.
Bye.
That was wonderful, man.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing better than those shows where I can just sit back and just listen and enjoy. And that was one of those where it was just gold all the way through. Yeah. Especially as somebody who's an aspiring writer. To listen to 2 people who live and work and breathe it is just great.
Yeah, absolutely, and just nice to get that perspective as well, because we get a lot of actors on, don't we? We get that perspective a lot of the time, and really lovely to hear hear it from a writer's point of view, and especially the hopes and fears as well, which I always think is really interesting because everybody has a slightly different take on it. But yeah, it's great.
Yeah,
very good indeed.
Yeah, fabulous. So I guess that's about it, unless there's anything else we want to get into at 9:10 on a Wednesday.
No, well, unless you want to talk about football.
I'm quite all right football. I'm feeling all right. I mean, no,
are you sure?
No other West Ham fan is feeling all right. Results didn't our result went our way massively, 4-0.
Yeah.
Mikhail Antonio, the
good.
first West Ham player to score 4 goals in a single game for the entirety of the Premier League. Well done, Mikhail Antonio, the beast.
He's a player, by the way. He's a player.
I tell you, he's such a brilliant, because he can play everywhere. He doesn't like to play everywhere. He likes to play out wide and up top, but he's so good. And I remember when I'm going to go off on one. We signed him from Nottingham Forest in 2015, so it was our final season at the Bowling Ground, and he was one of I'm not sure if it was one of Bilic's signings or whether he was a David Sullivan signing, but he sat on the bench for the first half of the season, happy to just kind of sit there and take it all in, because it was his first step up to the Premier League, and everybody, I remember all the fans were kind of game a go. And that first kind of 3-4 games with him, when he kind of came on as a substitute for 2 and then started the rest of the season and ended up, I think he might have been Hammer of the Year that year, and scored one of the last goals at the Bowling Ground. He scored the first goal at the Olympic Stadium. He scored the last goal at Tottenham's old White Hart Lane, scored the first goal at their new place. He's just a goal machine when given the opportunity, and I love that guy. So it was great. But like I said, the other results didn't really go our way. Everybody else,
tight.
I think there's 3 points between us and the other 3 in contention, is obviously Norwich are down. The interesting thing, though, is we are the only team left in the 4 who 2 of our games are against teams below us.
That's where it will be won and lost.
And everybody else, every other team, their remaining last 3 fixtures are all with teams above, and quite a way above as well. So it's like Everton, Arsenal, and all those, Man City. So, we've got Watford, Man United, and then Villa. So I can guarantee it will be Villa. So Dermot, if you're watching, sorry, mate.
No, I think, yeah. I think you'll get 6 points out of that.
Yeah, I reckon so. I mean, 4, I think, might just do it. A win and a draw and a loss. I can imagine that win coming at Man United, because that's just typical West Ham. We're going to lose to Watford. We're going to beat Man United, and it'll be a 0-0 at Villa. Or, I'll tell you what, it might be like 2-2, and it might be goal difference.
How are you doing on the goal difference?
It's a David Moyes team now, isn't it? It's dog shit.
Right.
It's... This weekend gone, last match gone, it's kind of 1-0, shut up shop. Brilliant. In fact, I've not sworn all episode. You've sworn. I've not sworn, but I just want to say, fuck off David Moyes, you shit. And Gold Sullivan and Brady, get the fuck out.
Well, you've certainly made up for it there.
Yeah.
Anyway, look, after such a lovely arty show, we've just spoiled it by football. But the Mighty Leeds are playing tomorrow. Always playing last for some reason, playing catch up. Well done. Listen, we're back next week, aren't we? Obviously, subscribe to all that sort of stuff. And we are back with the lovely fellas from Hellfire TV, which is a production company based in Leeds. Very excited to be talking to Andrew and Nate from Hellfire, and that'll be next Wednesday.
Yeah. Jeremy's just popped in chat saying he used to live opposite John Monker's granddad.
Oh.
Yeah.
Very good. He's got some stories, has that, Jeremy?
I tell you, he's been around the block.
He has.
I don't mean that in that kind of weird sense. Anyway, let's wrap it up.
You'll appreciate that.
Yeah. So, YouTube, thank you very much once again. Don't forget, like and subscribe. Check out the podcast on all the usual streaming platforms. If you're on Twitch, like and subscribe. If you're on Periscope, I don't know what works on that. But YouTube, definitely. Our subscribers are coming up. We'd like some more. Because we want Who Gives a Crap to sponsor us. Because they're getting mentioned every bloody week.
Yeah, aren't they just?
I know.
I'm sort of holding off subscribing because I'm hoping I might get a freebie.
Yeah, exactly. Brilliant. So join us same time, same place, youtube.com/, because we haven't got his URL back. Yeah, usual place. Adios.
See you later. See you on